And then we get to the bottom of the ninth inning. Louisville drives in a couple runs bottom of the ninth to tie it up 2-0. Then we go to the 10th. Texas hits a solo shot to take the lead back 3-2. And then the rest is history. Lucas Moore drives the ball to the outfield to walk Texas off to start the season. Welcome to the Third and Central podcast, the only podcast dedicated solely to the University of Louisville Baseball program. This is Matt Sefcovic, and joined by the newest member of the State of Louisville podcast crew, Terry Pennington. Terry, thanks for joining us again and coming back for your second episode after spending a weekend in the warm state of Texas. Sorry you had to come back to this nasty snow we've had up here. But before we get things started, we'll jump into the weekend that we had down in Arlington. But how was your trip down there?
Yeah, it was great. Awesome to be able to kick the weekend off, in a ballpark and event like that. And it was first class all the way. And just the area around the ballpark was beautiful with a bunch of restaurants and bars and things like that kind of right there. And they had like a Texas Live, basically kind of like the, what we have here in Louisville a little bit. And you can just kind of bar hop a little bit and things like that. And again, we played some pretty good baseball, and that made it good. No travel troubles or anything like that. It was a little jarring to get off the plane and have it be 20 some odd degrees, but it was good. There was a guy sitting right in front of us that had on the way home, Louisville Baseball jersey on. He was just gone down, not affiliated with the program or anything, just a fan, and went down to see 3 games and come right back. So it was good. Good
deal. Well, glad you had a good trip. And for me, it's just good to have college baseball back, man. To me, this is the best outside of the NCAA tournament. This is kind of the best time of the year, just ramping things up. And after waiting the entire off season to get back into the swing of things, so I love opening weekend, especially with all these tournaments that we're starting to see pop up, like we talked about in Arlington and Houston, and just the classics we're seeing of the Power 4 teams competing on the first couple weekends of the month. It's just exciting to see good baseball early on. So I'm just glad to pick up 2 big wins down in Arlington. So let's just go ahead and hop straight into that. We opened the weekend with number 19 Texas down there in their home state, which we talked about. It was going to be a tough place to play. How was that? How was the environment? I know they were throwing some big numbers around. Did Texas travel like we kind of thought they would, or was it a little quieter than we anticipated?
I thought it was a little quieter Texas-wise, just in terms of the number of fans. I mean, I probably had it built up a little bit too much in my mind, so that's probably a little bit on me. But the ballpark was pretty cool. The lower deck was kind of split into 2 sections, like a little bit, the right on top of the dugout and around the field. And then there was like a little bit of a walkway and then kind of another section on top of that before you kind of got up into it, started really, going up to the next deck. And it got 4 decks high in there. It was crazy. But the lower part along the sides and around was pretty full most of the way. To be honest, I thought Oklahoma State probably traveled just as well as anybody there. I think that was only like a 3.5 hour drive for them as well, so under 4 hours for sure. So they traveled probably the best, it seemed like. Ole Miss always is going to travel well, but I will say I was pretty impressed with the number of Louisville fans that came down there and showed up for the boys. Not just parents or anything like that. There was a good number of fans down there just there to support, and they saw the boys play some good baseball for sure.
Yeah, I thought that was fun after the first game, after we walked off Texas. Dan kind of met with them quickly on the field, and you could tell he was kind of like, go show the fans some love. And, the whole team ran over there and started doing the CARDS cheer with the fans. And they showed the whole thing on TV, which I thought was pretty cool, and panned to the fans to show all the fans that were there, supporting the guys. So it seemed like Louisville traveled well to, come that far down to Arlington to watch them play a couple baseball games on opening weekend. So that was pretty neat to see the fans interacting and making so much noise, and the players also kind of, giving kudos to them for sticking with them for a long night that went into the 10 innings. So let's kind of hop over to the game and just talk about how that went. As the game went along, Texas scores a couple runs in the second inning, takes a 2-0 lead, and, from there to the ninth, there wasn't a whole lot going on. It was pretty clean baseball on both sides. We saw a bunch of hits, but it was a bunch of singles. It seemed like there wasn't a whole lot of movement on the base pass for either team. And then we get to the bottom of the ninth inning. Louisville drives in a couple runs bottom of the ninth to tie it up 2-0. Then we go to the 10th. Texas hits a solo shot to take the lead back 3-2. And then the rest is history. Lucas Moore drives the ball to the outfield to walk Texas off to start the season. So super exciting game. I mean, I'm sure being that, I texted you after the game and I was like, that was just an awesome game to see on TV. I can't imagine what it was like live. Just kind of walk us through that. What did you see? Obviously, Patrick Forbes was sensational on the mound. I know he picked up 10 or 11 strikeouts against, a top 20 team in the country. So kind of a lot to take in, but being there, what did you observe?
Yeah, I mean, it was, exactly what you said was probably the thing I was going to start with first was just, man, Forbes was electric on Friday. Dan, I think that might actually even be the word Dan used post game was electric, and the fastball was live, man. I mean, he even made mention to us a little bit afterwards that the mistake he made, he just kind of left a cutter out there. For me personally, I love the fact that Patrick is continuing to work on pitches, continue to try to add to his repertoire. I mean, he's got, he obviously has the two main ones that his two go-to, and his fastball, especially the way it runs, is so good. But to see him continue to work, and I mean, it was that one pitch. And other than that, I mean, yeah, they hit him a couple times. But I mean, they didn't really threaten too much. And, after that, I'll be honest with you. I mean, there were, obviously we had some stars in terms of, it was so cool to see Garrett Pike come in and pick up that big knock and be able to help the boys out, in his very first game off the bench. Like, how awesome for him. And in a big moment with a couple outs. I mean, just to come through and tie that game up was awesome. And to see him again come right back, after, Texas gets the lead again and then come back and win it. Obviously, Lucas big hit, Zion big hit before that. Those were some great things. But man, I thought the star of the night was Jack Brown. I couldn't say enough good things about that kid. That kid has a special arm, and it's not just the talent. It's the makeup, and you could see it right away. I mean, he's not phased. The moment was not too big, and it was a big moment. And he comes in there, and I'm pretty sure that I think it was 2 2/3, and I think he saw one over the minimum with just a one walk. I thought he was the star of the night, because without that, the other stuff I don't even think is even possible.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that because, I know you have yourself, but I've watched Jack in high school, for the last couple of years and just kind of followed him along his career. And so he's got the stuff, right? And then you go to him against Texas, in Arlington to open the season, his first night ever playing college baseball. I was like, oh boy, this is a big moment. And like you said, 2 2/3, and he just went out there and shoved and, gave Louisville an opportunity to get back in the game. And I think that's what was one of the most exciting things to me was that they could have easily just rolled over, right? For 8 innings, offensively, they just couldn't string anything together. But they kept fighting. They kept fighting. Justin West had a heck of an outing for inning and a third. They 16 strikeouts against Texas down there. That's pretty dang impressive for Forbes, West, Jack Brown, and Tucker Biven, who came in the 10th. So just I was really proud of the pitching staff, kind of how they responded and just continued to fight. But I thought it was a heck of a baseball game. And, you hate to dwell on it, but, maybe last year's team doesn't continue to battle like this does. So, we talked about that a little bit last week in the podcast. Like, I think the makeup of this team is different. And every interview that you see the players or the coaches talk about, you're not going to hear an interview of any of them and you don't hear either love or family. And that just seems like what they're about. These dudes really love each other, and I think they care about each other a lot, and they're going to go out and battle because they're brothers. And I really think that that's kind of going to be the mindset of the team this year, that they're not going to let each other down because they're that close.
Team chemistry is something that it's something you can't really measure, but man, is it important. That type of thing can be thrown off by just a single individual or, all it really takes is one person to not be in line or in step with everybody else. Can kind of throw the vibe off. It can just make people, somebody can be a little, it doesn't even have to be selfish, but just not completely bought into, the team idea or the team game. And when you have everybody that realizes I need to do my job here, and when people are focused on doing their job, the sky's the limit for teams athletically. And to be honest, that really translates into the workforce, really into everyday life. I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of relationship you're in, if it's a friendship or a marriage or anything like that. Those are life, those are things that will carry you through life when you're willing to be selfless and do things for the team and for others.
No, and I think this team exemplifies many of those things you just talked about. I thought, did you get a chance to go back and watch Lucas Moore's press conference after the game that he did on the field?
He just was so like overcome with like energy, and like you could tell the adrenaline for him is just flowing. And like, I'm not even sure if afterwards, if you would like ask Lucas like an hour or so, like afterwards, if he would have even known what he was saying. It was just all just flowing out of him. And he just was, it was, we could see up on obviously he was right over there, but he was up on the video board and it was playing loud with the speakers and everything. And he was just completely overcome with just the moment was just awesome, and just letting
Yeah.
it flow. It was awesome.
Yeah, and that was obviously a big hit. And we kind of talked Lucas up last week on the podcast as one of the guys that we were kind of excited about this year. But Zion Rose, Matt Klein, and also had 2 hits with Moore. So even though they didn't score to the 9th inning, they just kept chipping away and kept chipping away, and just found a way to battle back and play clean baseball. And that's one of the things that we had talked about we wanted to see. And I thought for the majority of the game, they did that. And, playing a top 20 team pretty much on the road to start the season, I was very impressed with the maturity level that the team showed this year. So big first win, hoping to carry that momentum into Saturday. And they kind of ran into a buzzsaw, right? Oklahoma State, again, another top 20 team, ranked 17th, I think, to start the season. They got beat by Clemson, I believe, on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. But
one-run game, yeah.
Yeah, and a one-run game against the Tigers where Bakich had to sit that one out. I hate that rule, but he had to sit the first 2 out from getting thrown out last year in the Supers. But they just kind of, they took a 3-0 lead the 4th inning, and just kind of ran into a buzzsaw after that. And Oklahoma State rallied off the next 12 runs to take that one 12-3. What were obviously got started hot, and then Oklahoma State really just dominated the later part of the game. What did you see from the stadium?
Yeah, I thought, especially at the beginning of that game, I was surprised is definitely not the word. I was excited about the fact that from the night before, you did worry about the emotional high and is there a hangover or anything like that. I mean, it's less than 24 hours later, you're popping right back out there to go again. The bats came out. We scored, a few runs, like you said, up 3-0. Detmers is looking, I mean, he's on cruise control there for the, first 3. And, it looks like everything's going to, go in a quote unquote according to plan. And yeah, I mean, Oklahoma State got hot. We had some young kids in there getting their first, taste of college baseball. And just that's how it goes sometimes. I mean, some of them, rudely welcome to the college game. And look, that'll happen. It's tough because, for the most part, you don't show up at the University of Louisville, probably having too much of that happen to you throughout your baseball career. You take a step up, and obviously, the first weekend, some people are playing top level competition like that. Some are, there have been years, we opened with Bellarmine one year. So that would be probably a little easier way to kind of ease your way in, but tough environment, tough opponent. And, sometimes, some days the other guy's better than you are, and that's baseball. And, I'm sure doesn't make Dan or any of those guys think, anybody, isn't prepared for that level or anything like that. Just sometimes it's not your day.
Yeah. And like you said, that's just baseball, and that's just sports in general. I mean, that's how it rolls. Sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes you're the bug, and you flip to Sunday, and Louisville's the windshield. We'll talk about that here in just a few minutes. But one thing that I did think was positive from Saturday, even though they got beat by Oklahoma State, was, like you said, you've got a lot of younger guys in the game and getting that experience. Like, even though they did get beat, just getting experience in a ballpark like that, in a moment like that against a really quality opponent, that's stuff that's going to help them as the year progresses, right? Getting those guys experience, because let's say, somebody gets hurt during the game. Well, you got to put somebody out there that hasn't seen much action. So just the experience, the at-bats, the innings on the mound, all that stuff adds up to the greater goal at the end of the season, which is to get to the postseason, right? So the more at-bats you get and the more experience they're getting right now, and as the season goes on, that's going to be better for the younger guys as they progress this season. Because at the end of the year, we're going to need them. At some point in time, their number is going to be called when we have to call it, not because we need to or want to. We're going to have to. Something's going to happen to somebody, or it's baseball. That's how it goes. So I think just that's invaluable, the time that they get to spend on the field in those type of moments to get that experience.
I would like to say I think a couple of the guys that stuck out to me that did a really good job. I thought Tagger Tyson had a good day. I think he had just the one hit, 1 for 3 maybe. I'm not looking at the box. I think he was 1 for 3, but I'm pretty sure he scored 2 of the runs. I think Hot had a hit as well, and so like just each day, whether it was Neighbors, whether it was Hot that was playing second. There was a hit each day from that position. So those 2 guys, I'm sure, will, for the time being at least, continue to battle that out and continue to both get to play. But as we talked about last week, Tagger is very offensive, and he can really hit the baseball. And so he's definitely a much better runner than you would typically think a catcher would be. He's a good athlete, and so I thought he did a pretty good job behind the plate. And didn't seem to really struggle defensively at all. And so no, I was very impressed. I thought Tagger had a good day, and again, like I said, Hot stepping in as a guy that rotated in there at second base, getting a hit as well. I think I thought those were 2 big pluses that stuck out to me. And again, I don't want to downplay. I mean, the back third of his start, I'm sure, was not what he wanted, but there's a lot of positives there for Parker Detmers as well from the way he started off the game. I mean, the kid was about untouchable, for the first 3 innings. So, definitely, even though, it kind of went a little sideways for him there, still some positives, I think, that he could take to build off and go forward.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. You can see the stuff is there, right? But like we were saying, you're just when you're playing a team like Oklahoma State, like, you're going to take some lumps sometimes. So that I don't have any really concerns with Parker going forward. I have no doubt that he's going to continue to be a weekend guy, and he's going to bounce back. That's what he does. So I don't really have any concerns, especially let him play against some of the teams we're going to see over the next month to get him some confidence heading into ACC play. Now that's going to start off with a bang, because I think North Carolina is our first conference opponent this year. But get him some confidence before the Tar Heels come up here to Jim Patterson. But so let's flip the script over to Sunday. Like I said, on Sunday, Louisville was the windshield, right? They Arizona came out and hit a home run in the first inning. And that was their last hit of the game. From that point forward, they never recorded another hit. Peter Michael, Colton Hartman, Brennan Cutts, and Daniel Levitch, they didn't allow a single hit for the final. Now, they only played 8 innings, didn't play full 9, but for the final, 7 innings or whatever it was, 7 1/3, I believe, Arizona didn't get a hit. So, hats off to them, because anytime your Sunday pitchers can produce like that, Sunday's typically when you see more runs scored, right? The arms, your Friday night arms, like they're just not. So Sunday typically you see more runs scored, and to see our Sunday guys come out and throw like that and keep Arizona off the base pass was pretty damn impressive to me. And we talked about Michael last week. Northwestern, the year he had there, but then turned around the summer league and really just threw his ass off up there. So we didn't know exactly what we were going to get, but man, going forward, I am all in on Peter Michael and super excited to see what he's going to bring to this team this year.
The thing that I love about Michael is his mental makeup, and he made mention of it a few different times in the interview after the game, talking about the adversity that it's been through, and or that he has been through, excuse me, and the way that that's kind of shaped him and helped him, kind of grow into, not just the pitcher that he is, but the man that he is. I think, and allow him to understand. I mean, again, much like you might have seen on Saturday for some guys, it doesn't always go great. And that's okay. That's not only is that baseball, that's life.
Mm.
And so this kid to be able to persevere through, a couple of, tough experiences to start off his college career, he made mention of it that Roger, remembered him throwing against them, and that meant, I mean, he spoke very glowingly of Roger, not just as a pitching coach, but as a man, how, how much he enjoys being around him. I think his makeup and his ability to, he doesn't have, like we've talked about before, he doesn't have metrics that are going to jump off the page at you like maybe a Tucker Biven or a Patrick Forbes or somebody like that. But he knows how to pitch. You can't ask for anything more than what he gave you on a Sunday. And I mean, like you said, your Friday guy's your Friday guy for a reason. And typically, you tear yourself down a little bit. But man, he was outstanding. Also, just a shout out to his parents, man. They came over from California, which I thought was awesome. They just, had said, they wanted to be there, get to, they know he's going to throw that day so they can be there early. And I thought that was really cool. They're not going to get to be at, from California, not going to get to be at a whole lot of games. And so I thought that was pretty awesome that they were able to be there and that he was that good in front of them and in front of that crowd and in that stadium. And the other thing is, he made mention that, he wasn't overly, impressed with, oh, I'm in this big stadium or I'm against, a top 25 team. It's baseball. And I got to go out there and I got a job to do. And man, did he do it. He was outstanding.
I was super impressed with him. And, talk about, you talk about Roger Williams and just the coaching staff that he's around. I would say that's probably a big part of his success as well, right? He's probably never been around coaches that are this good. Nothing against Northwestern, but like their coaching staff probably doesn't have Dan McDonald's on it. They probably don't have Roger Williams on it. I think seeing the progression and like you talked about, just like him and his character, just super excited to see him come to Louisville and just have that success. And I think this really just gives him something to springboard his season. And I'm really looking forward to him being kind of the Sunday guy. I think this is something I've talked about for a long time on this podcast. I think one of the reasons that Dan has had a lot of success at Louisville there's a lot of reasons, but his good teams always have a really good Sunday starter. Like they always won the Sunday games. Win Friday or Saturday, we know we're going to win Sunday. So if you've got a guy like Michael that you can throw out there on the mound on Sundays and he's going to go win baseball games and ACC play, that's a heck of an advantage. So I was really excited to see what he brought to the table against a quality Arizona team.
Yeah, and the one other thing I wanted to point out, and you had pointed it out earlier, just making mention of all the guys. One of the things that really stood out to me from the whole weekend was the depth of the pitching staff. And Dan has mentioned it. We talked about it. But I mean, these guys, there were so many guys that were really good this week, whether, on Sunday. Obviously, everybody was outstanding. I mean, Michael, Cutts, Hartman, Danielovich, everyone was so good. And then, you toss out all those guys in the bullpen, obviously Forbes, but on Friday, you may mention West, Brown, I mean, Tucker gives up the run, but no one's worried about Tucker Biven stuff or what, no one's got any questions
there.
about
Yeah,
him
I don't worry
anymore.
about that.
No. So, I mean, and even some guys that might not have been at their best on Saturday, have really good stuff and showcase, I'm not going to worry about Ty Stark. It's a rough outing. Again, that's baseball. We all know Ty Stark has great stuff. We've seen it before. We'll see it again. So there's a lot of guys out there. This staff is really deep and they showcased it this weekend, which was pretty awesome.